Hello and welcome to the Bikdip's Adventure 2 100% Speedrun tutorial. My name is Autumn. I am currently the only runner of this game, or at least this category, that's submitted a run, and by definition the world record holder. I figured that I would make this tutorial as a means of potentially getting people into the run. If not, then that's okay. But I wanted to document the specifics of the route that I take, because while I have explained a lot of it in my speedrun videos, firstly, those are across several different videos, and I'm not sure that there's any single video where I have all the information. And also a lot of it is probably still just in my head. So I figured it would be good to consolidate all of the knowledge I have regarding this game's run into one big tutorial that people can hopefully follow to get a good run. So the first thing I did there is I deleted my previous files and I created two files. The first one I created was the file for part 2 of the game. This game is split into two different quest files created in an engine called Zelda Classic, which if you've ever played Zelda 1, it uses the same mechanics as that, but with a few added features. But for the most part, knowledge that you have from Zelda 1 will come in handy here, because it is supposed to be essentially an engine that emulates the original game. The reason that the game is in two parts is because the creator, Bikdip on a Bus, and I'm going to be going into this assuming that people have basically no knowledge of this game, so don't feel like you need to have seen any of my runs or the creator's playthrough at all. It was created using an old version, even for the time, that had limited capabilities and limited storage for things like maps and strings. And as such, Part 2 is a shorter in terms of number of areas, but actually takes up about half of the run. It contains level 9, which is the final level of the game. But that's beside the point. So the way that this works is you want to create a file for part 2, and specifically you need to play the enhanced version of part 2. If you don't have this, then you should be able to get it from a download. I'll put a link in the description to the download link for both parts of the game. And Part 2 has both a normal and enhanced version. Sorry that I haven't started playing here, but there's quite a lot of information that we need to have kind of as a basis. Part 2 has a normal and enhanced version, and the enhanced version is a reward for completing an optional objective in the first part. And it's locked behind a password. This was originally done through a website URL, but now instead there is it's basically, I think it's some kind of archive file that's been locked with a password. I'll also go ahead and put that password in the description. The game is very old and the password is basically public knowledge at this point, so that doesn't matter, but normally you would be intended to play part 1 first and then download part 2. But once you've got that set up, you create part 2 as your first slot, and then part 1 as your second slot. And the reason you want to do this is because when you delete a file, it will... Actually, no, I won't do that. Well, let me delete something unimportant. Here. So now that I've done that, you can see that these have shifted upwards. So there's no gap. So if I were to have these in the opposite order with part 1 first, and then I would have to delete it for whatever reason, say if I screwed up early into the run and wanted to restart, then part 2 would still be here, and the new part 1 would be underneath it, and then I'd have to delete part 2 if I wanted part 1 to be first. So it's easier to just put part 2 first and then part 1 second. So I'm going to get a horrible time here, but I'm going to be keeping track of the splits just to make sure I don't miss anything, and so that you can kind of see the progression. So you want to start time as soon as you enter the thing, and you'll end up on the title screen. You immediately want to go left, and then head up here. Okay, normally I would restart that. Actually, I think I will, just to show you, because you're going to end up doing this a lot, or at least I do, because the beginning is very... Oops, I actually meant to retry. That's another important thing to note. This was not the case in the original Zelda 1 unless you had a second controller, but in this, to replicate that, the feature of entering the continue save retry screen, you want to hit F6. On my keyboard, I actually have to hit function F6, but yeah. And what that lets you do is, if you continue, depending on the map, you'll go back to where you were last dropped off. It depends on the type of warp that was used. You don't really need to worry about that unless you want to get into modifying the route, potentially. Basically, all you need to know is you can continue and save at the points that I tell you to. The only time you ever want to retry, which basically just kicks you back without saving any of your progress, the only time you ever want to do that is if you're restarting the run like I did there. So, again, we get inside, we want to head left, and you start out on this beach. The intro would take you to a special screen where you'll be given basically a recap of the first game. You can skip that by going left. And so the beach is filled with two different types of enemies. There's Octoroks and Levers. Octoroks will move around kind of randomly. Levers will dig into the sand, and you can't see them when you first enter a screen. But they usually try to appear in your path, as you can see here by these appearing in front of me here. Also, another important thing to note, while I'm on the edge of the screen like this, I actually can't be damaged by enemies, and enemies also can't walk into that part of the screen, nor can shots fired by enemies reach me. So you're completely safe as long as you're on the edge of the screen. That's the top, the right, the left, and the bottom. You'll notice there that it's most noticeable with the rock over in the bottom left corner. It's only showing the top half of the rock, and the reason for that is that for some reason the original Zelda, and by extension Zelda Classic, doesn't display the full bottom tile. It only displays half of it. However, you can still walk halfway off of it. You can only see it when you transition screens. But anyway, you'll want to immediately move left, move up, and the levers will try to appear in your path. So what you want to do is you want to move immediately up as soon as you anticipate the lever. Try to kind of... I think I'm going to retry to show this better. But the path is basically you want to try to anticipate them like that. I messed that up, but you would want to move left there and then move up here. This screen has no enemies. Once you reach here, you want to avoid these guys as best as possible and enter the closest half of the cave entrance. Once you get in here, this guy will give you a choice between a boomerang and a candle. In modern versions, you can actually pick both up, and even though this is 100%, you're not actually supposed to. It's not quite a glitch. I think that the way that this works was implemented using a glitch in the first place that wasn't technically intended. Like I said, old version. But you want to pick up the candle and then immediately go ahead and save. And I forgot to split. Then you want to start. And I'm going to do this now. You can do this at any point during the split. You want to... Let me actually explain what I'm doing. I hit escape to open up the Zelda Classic menu, and then I hit right, down, right. If you just try to go right, then you'll open up the controls submenu, which you don't want. So you want to go right, down to sound, right, hit enter to enter the cheat code, and then type Narpus Sword of 1000 Truths. This is... Wait, what? Did I mess it up? Hang on. Narpus... Oh, sorry. Yeah, Narpus Sword of 1000 Truths. I think I put an extra S in there. So it's spelled like that. You're going to have to type that cheat code, I think, 3 times during the run, maybe 4. And obviously more if you make some kind of mistake and have to save warp. So with the cheat enabled, you can do several things, either through the menu or through hotkeys. I'm not going to explain how to set up the hotkeys because they're a little bit jank and I'm not actually entirely sure how they work in the first place. Let me at least show you what my cheat modifier keys look like. So I have mine set as left, shift, and left, and then nothing over here for the quote-unquote right. I don't exactly know how this works, but the way I do it is I set it up so that the left arrow key is all I need to press. So if you copy this, then you should be able to hold the left arrow key. So with the cheat code, you can refill life, magic, bombs, rupees, and arrows. This quest does not use arrows. That was a later added feature, and that actually causes a problem where if you're trying to move left while holding the left arrow key, for the record I use WASD to move. I should have a set up in the bottom left corner, yeah. if you try to move left while doing this, you'll hit A and it will try to refill the arrows you don't have, and it'll kind of glitch out and Bargo will stop in place. You don't want to let that happen. So try to avoid using the code while moving left. You may have to use it while moving, though. So either do it while moving other directions, or if you absolutely have to, then stand still, though obviously standing still will lose you some time depending on where you are. And if you have to do it while moving left, like for example you're moving through a lot of screens that go left, then do it during a screen transition, because you can let go of the key, quickly refill whatever you need to, and then move left. Magic is also not used in this quest, but that shouldn't be a problem, because M only opens the map. Of course, you can also just change your controls. You can use a controller, though from my experience that doesn't work very well in this game. You could use, for example, the ESDF keys if you really wanted to, but I prefer to just stick with WASD because it's my instinct, and just avoid doing it while moving left, but it's up to you. There's also left and right keys, which you can use to switch between B items, but we don't have any other B items at the moment, so I'll go over that later. So, once you have the code, you can do things like that. You can give yourself bombs, you want to do that pretty quickly. And so, what you want to do when you reload... Let me just continue here. What you want to do when you reload is head right, up, right. Try to move on the edge of the screen whenever you can. And you want to... Oh, my bad. You actually don't want to enter there. Oh boy. Okay, that was my bad. If I was just doing this in a normal run, then that would be, you know what? Don't worry about it. Just don't enter there. That was a mistake. You want to go up here. You want to burn that bush as you come over here. And then enter this half of the level. Make sure to heal whenever you get an opportunity. This lady drops rupees. If you pick up those rupees, you won't have to hear her text again if you come in here, but you shouldn't need to come in here again anyway, so just ignore the rupees, because that wastes time. You want to be using bombs to kill things, or even super bombs, because they are faster and more reliable than the candle. Also, you can only use the blue candle once per screen. An interesting thing to note about movement here, as you enter this room, you want to head down, and whenever you move, you can kind of move like pixel by pixel, but as soon as you change direction, Bargo will snap to the grid, specifically the half grid. So these tiles are a good way to demonstrate it. So you see there, I was kind of slightly into this, but now as soon as I move down, he snaps halfway into the grid. You may think that you can only move along these tiles, so I would have to move a full tile down to do this, but you can actually move halfway up into a tile, a solid tile. I'm not really sure why this is the case. But that's just how the sprite rendering works. Your hitbox is basically a full tile wide, but only a half tile tall, regardless of which direction you're moving. So you can't do this, like, you can't do it into this block, for example. But anyway, you want to do this. Over there is a hint room that's pointless for our purposes. You can walk through that block. Up here, you need to have the candle equipped, and right there, you can see that with the bombs and stuff, I'm cycling between them without entering the item menu. There's a couple points where it might be useful to enter the item menu if you need time to be paused, and I'll go over that when we do it, but for the most part, you want to be doing pretty much all of your item cycling using these keys. So here, for example, here's a good thing to note. This only saves a tiny amount of time, but you don't want to go all the way down here to do this. If at all possible, you want to, at all times, do things like this, where you go half into the tile, because you're moving less distance. So then we head up here. Once again, we want bombs equipped. Super bombs are not necessary for this part. You only have 2 of them, which can be annoying to keep track of, but just keep refilling them and you should be fine. In here, this room has a path that you can walk on, and the blackness damages you. If you use the candle, then everything damages you. So instead, what you want to do is walk left as soon as you enter the room and damage boost over this little step there. In here, this room is also dark, but you don't need, yeah, you don't need, to actually see it. I'll light up the rooms just so you can see the shape of them. Actually, let me go into this one and show you as well. It's 3 rows. But Generally, you saw how when I used the candle there, Bargo kind of froze for a second when the room lit up. That loses time, so you don't want to do that if at all possible. Okay, when you head down into this room, once again, you don't want to actually use the candle, but the path you want to take, this is a block pushing room. You want to move right, push this down, right, push this down, left, down, left, down, left, up, left, down, left, up, push, and then down a little bit to go left. This room gives you bombs. There are wall masters in here. If these touch you, they'll take you to the beginning of the dungeon, and your run won't be over, but it is certainly not recommended. You can walk up through this wall by pushing against it, and you want to do that to collect the heart piece. Then you can move down, and you need to head into this cellar. Here's an important thing to mention. There is a trick in this game called damage cancelling, or flame cancelling specifically. Those keys will damage you if they touch you, and you can use this, but you can also use the candle fire to do the same effect. So let me actually kill these keys to demonstrate this better. Okay, so if you burn an item, I had failed that. Okay, I'll try to show it off next time I get an item. But you basically, and when you use the candle, it moves 2 tiles away from you, for the record. You want to try to have that land on the thing and then walk into the fire. I don't really do this in my runs because it's too much. I'm not really much of a speedrunner. I only speedrun this game. But, yeah, so what you can do is, if you burn the item, you can exit the animation there. So, yeah. And that is slightly faster. Up here, you'll use the boomerang we just got, and the boomerang is your friend. It's probably the best item in this game, aside from maybe super bombs. So you want to use those to kill those things. They can be kind of annoying. Here you want to switch to super... Oh, I don't have super bomb. Try to avoid those fireballs if you can. Super bomb should kill Aquamentus in 1 hit. Oh, I forgot to split. My bad. And for magic boomerang. Oh no, I don't want to keep that. How do I undo again? 8? No, I want to make sure it's not a gold split. Oh boy. Oh, for goodness sake. There you go. So, now you want to get Triforce. Oh, and this is going to be a fucking gold split too, isn't it? Okay, whatever. I'll just make sure not to save that. Ugh, that's what I get. Okay, well, that's going to conclude part 1. As soon as you do that, you want to continue, and you'll end up at the beach. It's faster than walking. I think I'm going to split these up into parts just to give myself a bit of a break and to potentially re-record segments if I don't do well. You normally wouldn't save here, but I'm going to save just to... Well, no, I'll check the recording first. So yeah. Actually, yeah. Thanks for watching. In the next part, we'll be going over level 2. And then we'll just kind of proceed like that. See you then.